Well, welcome to this webinar with the Lisa Ann Rusch Burn Foundation. My name is Ed Comeau. I've been working on this project with Daniel. And Daniel, I was wondering if you would just take a minute to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. My name is Daniel Chacon. I am the Executive Director of the Lisa Ann Rusch Burn Foundation. I've been with the Burn Foundation now for going on 13 years. Before coming here, I worked as a seasonal firefighter for CAL FIRE. I had a stint in education as a high school teacher. And then I've been in nonprofit and burn prevention, as well as working with burn survivors for some time now.
Before we get into today's webinar, could you just tell us a little bit about the Lisa Ann Rusch Burn Foundation, what your organization's all about?
Absolutely. The Lisa Ann Rusch Burn Foundation got started in 1971 when a young girl named Elisa Ann and her brother were both burned in a backyard barbecue accident. Unfortunately, Lisa Ann ran to her mom and the flames got larger and unfortunately took her life. Her brother David, however, was pushed down and rolled out and was able to be saved. Their mom, Diane, wanted to make sure that they could honor Elisa Ann's memory and prevent future burns from happening, as well as supporting burn survivors. So from there we have a dual mission as an organization to both in preventing burn injuries, as well as assisting those who have been impacted by a fire or a burn.
And you're based out of California, right?
That is correct. Yeah. So we are a California state organization. We have 3 areas within California that we've had offices in the past. So our mission is California centric. However, we do work for the greater good of all prevention throughout the U.S. and internationally.
And along those lines, the Lisa Ann Rusch Burn Foundation was awarded a grant, about, I guess, a year ago now, maybe a year and a half, time flies, to help develop more effective messaging for burn prevention and fire safety. So, Daniel, could you tell us a little bit about this project? What was the genesis and how it all came to be?
Absolutely. I think for us, there's been a lot within the burn prevention and injury prevention field that when we look at community risk reduction, that we really are seeing and hearing a lot of messaging going out there. Having worked in the fire service myself and also having been a part of a lot of the conferences within the community risk reduction community and being a part of the fire service, we're inundated with different types of messaging. However, we really don't know what it means when a message is effective. And we are assuming that a message is good, especially messages that have come before us, before many of our careers. So we've heard about Stop, Drop, and Roll for years now, and that came and was a part of the Lisa Ann Rusch Burn Foundation. But even for us as a message as we hold, what have we done to make sure that that message is truly effective to reaching the audience and really preventing what we think is an injury or that would be a life-saving message. So this is really something that we look at. For me, I personally have been preaching for years about standardization messaging. And what really came out for me in this grant process was a little different outcome than I actually thought for myself. So I'm excited for us to show and talk to people what we have done within this, because I think this is going to be very much in alignment with what community risk assessments and community risk reduction is all about, and really doing something that hasn't ever been done before.
I mean, so often, I know I've seen it, and I'm sure you have as well, that when messages go out there, they seem to, after a tragedy, a fatal fire may have happened in a community or something. So they're taking advantage of the teachable moment, which is good. But unfortunately, a lot of times the messages have everything under the sun in them. They're trying to hit everything in terms of smoke alarms, sprinklers, cooking, 2 ways out. And kind of my feeling on that, and I think you agree, is it's really diluting the message by having too much to say.
Yeah, I think sometimes we forget who our audience is, and sometimes we're like, we have them for 5 minutes, so let's give them everything and whatever sticks. And I think sometimes we got to be a little smarter and a little more intentional with what we're communicating to the general community, and really trying to find what that message is most important. I think also there's a big marketing tick for a lot of us as organizations of feeling a need to always have to revamp the message to make it where it's gimmicky or it's clever or it has all these things. And I think really when it comes down to it, are all those gimmicks and those catchphrases really picking up for people so that they understand and that they're actually going to utilize that message when the time comes?
Yeah, because we really need to think about our audience. I mean, all this stuff's important to us because we live it every day. This is our life. This is our job, our career. But, you know, to Mr. and Mrs. Smith out there, it's not nearly as important with everything else they've got going on in their lives. And I think we suffer from a thing that I've heard called the curse of knowledge, where we know this stuff, it's important to us. Why isn't it important to you? So, you know, we're really trying to make it important to them without overloading them because, boy, they're just getting bombarded on all different sides. And really, hopefully this project will help in that, making it important to them as important as it is to us, don't you think?
Absolutely. I think you hit it right on the nail on the head on that one. I think for a lot of us, when we're either utilizing a message that has been utilized before or we're creating a new message, I think we're thinking the lens of ourselves. And I think sometimes we're doing a disservice for everyone else. We use a lot of jargon within the fire service and the burn prevention community. And in addition to the jargon that we use, I think there's also this thing of like, okay, I'm going to say this. Well, you are one type of person. You may not be the other gender, the other race, the other socioeconomics, the other geographical difference than another person. And if you are thinking that your lens translates to all people, that's not true. And I think that was one of the biggest things that I learned through this process is as much as we talk about cultural competency when it comes to messaging, I think we really have to live that. And I think as much as we all want that, it's a lot harder to do when you're trying to then speak out to the masses within that. So there's been a lot of good things that have come from this. And I think what we've been able to create within this grant and the purpose of it really truly lives to, I think, what we'll start to see when people start to utilize it and being able to create messages that are actually going to make a difference.
I mean, you kind of brought it up right there when you're telling the story about Elisa Ann and her brother, where, you know, unfortunately she didn't stop, drop, and roll. And one of the things that came up as part of this project, I remember, is that whole phrase, stop, drop, and roll. It's been, in a way, one of the most successful things, but also in a way, kind of a curse, because people think that's the answer to everything. They say, you know, what do you do when your room's on fire? And they look at you and say, stop, drop, and roll. And we've learned that, well, maybe we need to make that message more complete by saying, when your clothes are on fire, stop, drop, and roll. And that's the sort of stuff that to us makes a world of sense. But to Mr. and Mrs. Smith, you know, they need that little preamble, when your clothes catch on fire. You know, so it's one of the little things that has come out of this, I've learned out of this project, that, you know, you just don't think of. That's the amazing thing about it. So one of the things I'd really like to talk about now, we've been at this about a year, a little over a year, almost a year and a half now, working on this project, but we pulled together a heck of a team to work on it. Do you want to talk about a little bit about some of the people and the areas of expertise that we have involved in this project? So it's not just Ed and Daniel putting this together.
Yeah, if it was Ed and Daniel, we would be in trouble. Although Ed's really, really good at these. I think for us, it was really important that we looked at the diversity of this topic, right? And when we look at messaging, there's so many different components that are there. You have communications, you have marketing, you have a readability or understanding and age. So being able to have different individuals, we have someone, Eileen from Johns Hopkins University, who brings a different mindset, who doesn't really have a burn prevention outlook, but brings something to a different of like, that really doesn't make sense to me when I've done messaging or prevention in other areas or have done some field experts. So so many rock stars. Carla Class out of the University of Michigan, who has a background within injury prevention and has worked in the burn trauma section of our hospital for years. To name them all, I'm going to forget someone, Ed. So, you know, I really just want to speak to the breadth of the diversity of everyone, from fire service to Tim Young, who is part of this marketing realm, to just individuals who have been a part of our burn community. Becky Coffey, who is also done a lot of work within burn prevention and messaging. Taurine, who's out of Save Kids Worldwide, who specializes within multiple disciplinary injury prevention topics, including burn and fire safety. Really, and plus our partners who have been a part of our past FEMA grants is two individuals from Cal State Northridge, CSUN, both Coral and Dr. Ali Kazeki, who have the background of behavioral science and utilizing behavioral science as part of our messaging and what that means to us too. So I can't speak highly enough for everyone who's been a part of it. It's been an amazing experience, and it feels like you're working with these juggernauts who have a background and an expertise that not all of us come to the same place with the same understanding. So I think that's made this a more well-rounded and effective program.
And I mean, you mentioned it's Dr. Kazemi and Coral Florian from CSUN who are working on this. And I think that's one of the things that makes us unique too, is that not only is this project based on a lot of research that we've done on communications, but we're really dialing in some behavioral science into it, which is an area that's not really used a lot from what I see in the fire and burn prevention world. Some of the basics of behavioral science, which I think have a lot of applicability, because really what we're hoping for, the bottom line, the end result is behavioral change. We want the public to go through some sort of behavioral change, and bringing in behavioral science, I think, is really a key part of this project. Would you not agree?
Absolutely. It's odd, and Ed, you and I have known each other for a while now, but this is, in my breath within the foundation, this is our third FEMA grant that we've worked on together. And really, I feel like in some ways we've done everything out of order in what we've applied for these FEMA grants. The first one that we did was just on enhancements of our program. It's like, oh, we need to do all these big fancy things to really enhance our program. And then we did that, and the program was more effective, but it wasn't truly what we were looking for. And there was something missing from it. And I think, Ed, you had brought in a lot of research and a lot of understanding of what we define as behavioral change and what we are looking for within what we did on our last grant, which is our Be Safe tool, and learning about the importance of that, as well as the past executive director of the Lisa Andrews Burn Foundation, Jennifer Raddick Johnson, who brought a different perspective, also wanting to look at behavioral change when it came to this. But what we've learned from those past two grants now fits perfectly in alignment when we go to messaging. They're all connected. Everything that we do, from program campaign to what the outcome measurement is going to be, whether that be behavioral change, knowledge increase, or anything else that you're trying to evaluate your program to be, it really all is connected. And I'm really excited to see this, because I think what you're able to do with what we have in this checklist and this tool is to get a message, run it through it, see its effectiveness, be able to then to see the behavioral change through the Be Safe tool, and then have an outcome that's going to say, this is how we've measured our success within our community risk reduction.
So we've been kind of hinting around what this project's all about, and there are two components to it that have come out over the past year and a half, a checklist and a messaging guide. So do you want to talk a little bit about the checklist? What is the checklist that we keep talking about?
Yeah, I think for a lot of us, when we met, we really didn't have an idea of what we were really going to hope. We just wanted something, a tool in which we can develop that was going to allow us to be able to help evaluate an effective message and what makes an effective message. And we wrestled, I think, for a while until we did some good digging. And I really want to give a lot of props to our friends at Cal State Northridge, and also to you, Ed, because you guys really looked at what's already been done out there. And really what we found was that the CDC and other organizations had already kind of developed some similar components to what a quote unquote checklist would look like. And at the time we had thrown out the term a rubric or a checklist. And then finally we started to piece it together. We said, oh, wow, we can really morph and form something together. And really, I can't tell you and give you a tool, because any message you give, there's going to be outliers to it. But if we have this checklist and we divide up the checklist in different, what we have is these different categories or these different parts of what makes a message good or effective, then we can really tell you, it's not to say it's a no or yes, the message is good or not. It's to say your message is here and you can always improve it. And your message could always be taken to the next level, to the next level, to the next level. And I think that's what we look at, is no longer we're saying a message is good or not, is how do you improve the message so that you can have the best outcome from it. And I think the checklist allows that, because there's this way to push you over to the next one. And also for me, when I've started to run our messaging through it, that we utilize to say, wow, I've never really thought about that. I didn't think about that one aspect of it. And I think so much times we try to think about it all, but to be able to just say yes, no, yes, no, yes, I have this, and be like, oh, I didn't do that. Now I need to go back to my message and say, how do I tweak that so I can add that component into it?
I mean, kind of one of the things that has evolved out of this whole project too is some of the questions may seem rather rudimentary to some people, but also the idea is to make them think. Have I considered, I mean, that example I gave you earlier of the stop, drop, and roll, you know, how many of us have thought we need to precede that with, when your clothes are on fire, stop, drop, and roll? You know, it's just to get people thinking about their things and not just assuming that everybody's going to understand what you're saying here. I think that's been a real benefit out of this whole project.
Absolutely. And I think some of it's also being able to take a deep dive to say, I'm not just answering yes to all these things because I want a perfect score so that I can say my message is good, but it's to take a deeper dive to say, if I'm truly honest, I'm going to really look at this and I'm going to say, am I truly doing this, right? Am I truly living this out? And I think being able to also bring in other members of your team, if you have that ability, or other colleagues and peers from other organizations, to say, hey, I want you to work on this with me. Like, I want you to help me review. This is what I'm doing. This is my messaging. This is my audience. Help me now in helping me evaluate my message to get an outside perspective of that, to truly make sure that that message is as best as it could be.
So we've been talking about the checklist. Another big part of that's evolved too is the message guide. Want to chat about that a little bit?
I think this is just as important. And I think I really hope that people don't miss this part of it. And Ed, I, again, want to give you a lot of credit for this, because you're the one who did a lot of this work of pulling together. I think what I want people to walk away from this is that the guide and the checklist are not just something that a bunch of subject matter experts came together and decided, oh, these are great ideas, let's do it. All of this has come from research. All of this has come from things that have already been out there. So what we've done for the checklist and the guide, but in particular the guide, is to look at what, when it comes to communication, what articles and research have been done. We pulled all of that together, and what we have is every area of the checklist, there is a link or there is a connection to say, you don't know what cultural competency is, click right here. We'll take you to the guide, and the guide will give you all of the information on what that means and resources on how you can make your messaging fit that better. So not only are we telling you to be able to, like, hey, evaluate it, but we're giving you the tools, the resources, the links, not from what we've created. There's so much, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. There's so much already out there, already within the burn prevention community and fire prevention community, but also in the general injury prevention community, and also out there in the general sense of what we look at when we look at communication and marketing and all those other aspects.
And the guide, as you mentioned, is based on research. And really what we've tried to do in this guide is distill that research down to the bare, I wouldn't want to say bare bones, maybe that's a bad expression, but we've really tried to distill it down so you don't have to wade through a lot of this research to get to the salient points. We're trying to give it to you in a bullet format. Boom, here you go. This is what you need to do. But like you said, we're really linking out to the, if you want more detailed, if you want to read it in depth, we're providing you with that resource so you can go and look further upon it. Because one of the things we've really discovered is, boy, the world of public health has done a lot of this already. And it's a shame that we haven't really brought it into the fire and burn world, what they've done in public health in terms of communications.
I agree. And I also want to give us some respect to the fire and burn community, is that I do think we do somewhat a better job of this than I think some of the other injury disciplinaries in that too. But I think learning what the CDC, learning what public health has done within some of their messaging really brought us to say, Again, we don't need to recreate this. We just need to make this a little more user-friendly for our audience and for people that we work with. We know that people who work in the fire service don't have a lot of time. We know that we're limited resources, limited time, and at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We all want to prevent injuries and reduce call volumes and make sure that people are safe and okay. And the best way we can do that is to say, when I'm looking at my whole scam and I have a time where I can dedicate to doing my community risk reduction, I want to also evaluate what I'm doing when I actually have my messaging, which starts from the very beginning, before you even go to programs, before you even go to your campaigns and your community outreach. And I think for me, there's no set education out there. So what this offers is some education for people in the fire service that says, no matter what your education was before you started, no matter what your career was before, if you're just put into this position, utilizing this checklist, utilizing this tool is going to help you to make sure what you are doing is going to be the most effective no matter what.
And
Go ahead.
nope, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
All right, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I was going to say too that this checklist can be used on both a new message if you're putting something new together, but also you can test drive your existing messages as well to make sure if you're hitting all those benchmarks, can't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the benefit of being able to utilize it for both things, both evaluation and improvement of an existing message, or just evaluation of a message. So a lot of times we come into a job and they're like, this is what you do. These are it is. For you as a brand new person to it, you can say, cool, I'm going to utilize this tool and checklist to throw in all of our messaging that we're telling people to see where they stack up to it. And the other cool thing about it is that essentially, if all the criteria of your messaging within your core message and the messaging in terms of your audience line up, you can also see what someone else has done with it through the tool, the checklist, to say, hey, they've already kind of done it. Like I already kind of know what they've done within that messaging to say that is a good message. I think people are going to be kind of surprised to be like, oh man, maybe the messaging we've been done for 50 years isn't what we should be doing right now.
Right.
I think that is the important part of this is really, you said a second ago, we throw the whole bathroom sink into it and give them everything. And I think what we're really going to see is people are going to do that in this checklist and say, this isn't what they need. This isn't addressing what our issues are when it comes to our community risk assessment. We actually need to do one thing, and that's this right here. Let's tackle out one thing to see if that makes a difference. And I think that's where we hope that this goes, and not utilizing what's just been done in the past, but what the biggest need is and how to do it most effectively.
One of the expressions that stuck with me out of my research here is somebody had said, if you say too much, you've said nothing. So like you said, we're throwing everything in there, hoping that something sticks. Well, oftentimes nothing sticks, unfortunately. So we are in the middle of January 2023 as we're recording this. Where's the project stand right now? What's happening and what's coming up?
So this project has been a 2-year grant, and we're very grateful again for FEMA for their support in allowing us to embark on this amazing project. For the past year and a half, roughly, we've been working on our community of subject matter experts and getting and collecting all that research and putting it together to create both the checklist and the guide. And at this point, we've been at a 99% complete rate where we have tested out internally with each other. We've asked friends and colleagues who we know are in the burn community that may want to do it. Now we're excited because we want to go into the next phase of this, which is our next beta testing of it. So for us, it's not just we're going to put this out there and say it's good to go. We actually want to prove that this works. So now what we're going to be doing is reaching out to a select few departments and fire service and community partners who work in injury prevention, mostly within fire and burns, but some without, in multidisciplinary injury prevention, and have them actually run through this and test it to give us feedback on what it looks like. We want to see the data within the beta testing to say, what was the usability of the tool? Did it take a lot of time? Did it not take a long time? And then also, how did you like it? What was your satisfaction of the tool? Do you think it was effective? Would it change anything that you're doing within your own programs and what you are currently offering within your department? And then once we're done with that, we're going to be able to collect that feedback, see where we're at with it, make any final tweaks that we need to make, and then go through and be able to then push it out and have everyone be able to utilize this awesome resource. And again, this isn't something that comes with a price tag. This is something that we are offering out to everyone because we believe in the power of what this is that we want the resource to be available to people.
And I think you actually hit my next question there. It's free. Everybody has to understand that. This is something that's free out there. It's your fire prevention and safety dollars at work, putting this all together on there. So, we're going through the beta phase that you had mentioned right now. And at the end of the webinar, we'll have a little bit of information how people can get some more information or make a request if they want to be a part of the beta testing on it. But when it's all said and done, when we have finished this project after 2 years, where will people go to be able to find it?
Yeah, we want to be a hub. When I say we, the Elise Andrews Burn Foundation wants to be a hub in which people can see resources. So we'll link all of this information on our website. So if you go to www.aarbf.org, or you just Google search Elise Andrews Burn Foundation, that will take you to our website. You'll find all the information on all of our burn prevention programming that we offer, which is also all free, as well as information on this grant, as well as the grant that we did right before this on the Be Safe tool on behavioral science. So if you haven't looked at the Be Safe tool, I encourage you to do that as well, but they can find all of that on our website.
And if people want to get a hold of with you, Daniel, how do they do that?
Good question, Ed. They can also go to the website and get a hold of me. All my contact information, as well as the contact information for all of our staff, is on our website. And that would probably be the best way to reach out to me. I hope to hear from people and answer any questions, because this has been an awesome experience for us, and we hope to further this continuation of the service we can offer to the bigger community.